Hey guys, welcome to this week's episode of Chewing the Fat. Such a great one.
I'm always going to giggle, man.
I know, that's so cool. In the house again, I've got Dean Kilby with me, who's been my health coach for the last, I think, 5.5 weeks. Did you say this morning?
Yeah, 5.5 weeks.
Yeah.
April 23, you started.
Yeah, right. So actually, I thought it was longer than that, but that's good. Today we're going to be talking about a few different things, some of the different meal supplement things we've been trying, some of the different scales we've been using as well, instead of just the old school analog scales that were started at -3.
I can't believe you had them.
I didn't. I had to borrow them. But and also, we're going to have a look at what the difference is between both money-wise, time and effort-wise, the difference between doing what I'm doing now and versus what you would do with, say, a personal trainer or taking on a big fitness regime along with what we're doing now. So that's going to be pretty cool. Thanks for joining me, Dean.
Pleasure.
So the scale.
How's your progress? I want to know.
It's been going really well. This morning I woke up, well, pretty much since I started, there's been a niggling gout sensation in my feet, in one of my feet, in the middle of my toes. And it's just sort of been there and thinking, is it going to come on? Is it not? Is it going to come on? Not? Is it going to come on? Not? And then last night and this morning, big toe, bang. It was just like, made walking around all day fun. But the bicarbs worked pretty well.
You got some?
Yeah, well, I had like a jar of it for cooking.
Of course she did.
Of course she did. I said, we got any bicarbs? Yeah. Bang. There you go. Industrial type of bicarb. It's still sore to move and to walk on, but the actual throbbing and pains drop. Like, it's not sore just to sit there like it was last night. It was just thump in my foot. The first thing Lance said was, "But you're eating so well." What's the go?
Yeah. I mean, gout's a common issue. So, particularly if guys who travel to, I don't know, these holiday destinations like Thailand or whatever, it's hot and everything's cheap and you're getting pissed and drinking heaps of alcohol and you're dehydrated and you're eating a lot of animal protein and then a lot of these Australians come back with gout, right? So gout is not just restricted to travel. It's just a common issue. So what happens is you get uric acid crystals. It crystallizes when the pH drops below, I don't know, whatever it is, 5.5 or something like that. So people think that it's high protein diets that tend to cause gout issues. So there's been this somewhat unwritten consensus that you would put someone in ketosis, and you got to remember that the standard keto diet tends to be people overdo animal protein akin to the Atkins diet, and they restrict carbs. So if you consume a lot of animal protein, you got to remember that the animal protein that you're consuming, whether it be a steak or a chicken breast or even fish, they're muscle. It's muscle cells that you're consuming, right? And that's an active organ. So not only does every one of those muscle cells have a nucleus that has a lot of DNA, it's got a lot of mitochondria. Mitochondria are the powerhouse organelle structures inside each cell that generates energy. So obviously in active organs, you're going to have a high energy demand and therefore high numbers of mitochondria. Why is that relevant? Mitochondria also have their own genetic material inside them. So if you've got a disproportionately high number of mitochondria inside these muscle cells and you're consuming it, then the DNA gets metabolized to purines, which then results in high levels of uric acid. Okay. And then when the system gets acidified, it crystallizes out. Okay. And this can result in kidney stones and gout in joints, and it can be painful. So the issue that you're dealing with, it's not because you're on a high protein diet. You're consuming an adequate amount. It's not high. It's just the minimum amount that you need to spare your muscle, your own muscle, because as we've spoken about before, when you eat less, you'll lose muscle. So you have to ensure you get adequate nutrition, i.e. protein, to preserve that muscle mass.
Yeah.
So it's not because of excess protein. Plus, you're not eating much animal protein.
No.
The majority of the protein you're consuming is isolates, whether it be whey protein isolates or pea protein isolates or soy protein isolates. So there's no DNA in there. Okay. So that's the advantage of some of these protein food products and powders, and there's a wide variety that people consume these days. Not only do you get the quality protein in a low caloric situation, but there's none of the DNA from animal protein, right? So what's happening with you? You have a history of gout in those toes. Is it your toes?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you got a history of gout. So if we put your body in somewhat of an acidic situation, then you may experience those symptoms again, just as you normally would. But whilst your body's adapting to this new energy system, the ketones that are fueling your body now are acidic in nature. Okay. So they're the acids, beta hydroxybutyric acid, right? It's acidic. So it's often the case that people who have experienced gout in the past may experience those symptoms again whilst on this kind of metabolic reprogramming structure. So what I asked you to do was increase your water intake to help flush out those crystals, right? And help buffer the pH. To further do that, if you go to a doctor, they'll give you some potassium citrate medications that help to buffer and restore the pH that your body needs. You can do that, you're just taking some sodium bicarbonate, baking soda, in some water 3 times a day in between meals. And this will help buffer that. So with the increase in water intake to help flush your system out, and the bicarb buffers it so it's not so acidic, so the crystals don't, the uric acid doesn't crystallize, and then it can actually be washed out.
Yeah.
Right. So it's temporary. And,
I was getting it all the time before anyway. Like there was a period there I was like, unless I take the tablets, it just comes straight back. And then I haven't taken anything until, the last probably week or so. I was just on the gout tablets I take, but they didn't work.
Yeah.
So, but like I said, the bicarbs just knock the edge off, and it's not it's still swollen and sore, but it's not to just sit there. It's comfortable as don't notice it.
Yeah. No, obviously, if it persists, go see your doctor.
Yeah.
And for anyone listening to this, I'm not a doctor. I'm a scientist, so take what I say with a grain of salt or a grain of uric acid, Crystal. Go see your doctor.
I'm just going to open my. Where did I put this thing? In the fitness thing. Getting onto the scales. You dropped off some scales to me during the week that are a fair bit more accurate than the ones I was using. But the great thing about them was, and especially the Fit Track one that I used, only because I don't have to bend down and try and see and wear glasses because I can't quite read the display and all that sort of stuff. The Fit Track one just hooks up via Bluetooth to your phone as soon as you open the app, and you stand on the scales, and then straight away, I don't know whether you can see.
No, it's too bright. No.
There we go.
Oh yeah, people can see that. Yep, I can see that.
So it just gives you a whole list of various measurements like your weight, your BMI, your body fat percentage, your muscle rate, your water levels, your bone mass, your metabolic age, which was interesting, your visceral fat index. And it's just all like straight away, as soon as you stand on the scale, a couple of seconds, bam. And I thought that was just awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard if you're just looking at, if you don't understand what you're doing, and you're just using normal scales, which are fine, by the way. If I'm coaching someone and all they've got at home are just scales that tell you total body weight, that's fine. The methodology that I use is so robust that you can do the protocol safely. I don't need all the biometric parameters, but like you're experiencing, it's very empowering when you get your hand on the levers and dials of everything that's going on, and you can't do that unless you can accurately measure it.
Yeah.
So the scales you're talking about, the bioimpedance scales, a lot of people argue about their accuracy. It's like, whatever, who cares? So long as you're using the same scales and the same person, you're getting on it just once a week. Don't step on the scales more than once a week. I tell people, otherwise it's like watching the stock market every 5 minutes. It'll do your head in, right? So, and then when you get on the scales, make sure it's the same time every day. But the bioimpedance scales, what they do is they send through like a couple of electric currents through your body. And there's different resistance between your muscle is going to conduct that differently to how your fat conducts it.
Yeah, right.
So, right, and your body creates a closed loop on the scales. So it can tell you, so the measurements that I'm always interested in is not just your total body weight. I want to know how well are you hydrated. So I prefer, I've given you the FitTrack scales to kind of test out, but the Tanita scales, in my view, the industry standard, in my view. And they've got data sets that, obviously they all use these algorithms to determine where you sit on the scale of the thousands of people that they've measured. So I want to look at your hydration levels. So for a man, you ought to have, 50% minimum body water percentage. For a female, it's 45%. I'm interested in your visceral fat score. So, before that, I want to know what your body fat percentage is. And for a man, you want your body fat percentage to be below 25%. That would have you in the healthy range. If you're a female, you'd want that to be below 36% body fat. So obviously people who have seen me in the past usually opt in because of some medical context. They're concerned about heart disease, or they're dealing with some kind of issue like that, or a doctor's told them to come talk to me. So they opt in, and what's commonly used in the medical circles is BMI, which stands for body mass index. So how you work out your body mass index is you take your total body weight in kilograms, and you divide that by your height in meters squared. So if how tall are you? 184?
No, 181, I think.
181. So 1.81 times 1.81, right? And you would divide your weight by that, and that would give you your BMI. So if you've got a BMI below 25, like something like 18.5 to 25, that's normal weight range, weight for height. If it's 25 to 30, we would consider that person overweight. And if there's another aspect of metabolic syndrome, then they ought to handle that. What I mean by that, do they have high blood glucose? Do they have high blood pressure? Is your cholesterol elevated, right? Or triglycerides in particular. So you've got abnormal lipids. If your BMI is over 30, then we would consider you clinically obese. And certainly you need to handle that. Okay, it's not even, is there an increased risk of me developing one of these chronic diseases? It's an inevitability. Just pick one. And it's just an earlier onset of heart disease, type 2 diabetes, stroke, cancer, and degenerative neurological disorders like dementia.
Right.
So it's just, pick one. Right?
Yeah.
Which one do you want first?
Yeah.
Unless you handle it. So that, you got to have that handle. And a lot of people argue, oh, BMI is not that accurate. What about bodybuilders and all this sort of stuff? It's like, listen, for the majority of people, it's a pretty damn good way of assessing the situation. Okay. Now that's how people opt in, but I become less interested in your BMI and I'm more interested in your body composition. So the scales that you've got can tell you that your muscle to fat ratios. So obviously you want less fat and more muscle. Okay. So your body fat percentage, and also your visceral fat score. So both of those scales tell you the score that we give your gut and how much fat is sitting around your internal organs.
Yeah.
So on the Tanita scale, if you've got a visceral fat score higher than 12, then that's outside the normal range. And that's suggesting you're at risk of issues like coronary artery disease and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. I've had some functioning alcoholics that I've worked with as well. And, I had one guy, his visceral fat score was 24 or 25, something like that. And we got it down to 15. It was amazing. He got some amazing outcomes. Unfortunately, I had to complete him as a client because he kept breaking protocol and consuming alcohol, which is just a no-go on this protocol whilst you're in ketosis. It's just too dangerous. And people, particularly in this Australian culture, people, it's just a drink. I've got to have a drink. No, you don't. You've got to have a drink like you've got to have a heart attack. Like, grow up. Like, you don't need a drink. I don't care how stressed you are. You're not a freaking brain surgeon and have 20 people's livelihoods on your operating table every day. Get over yourself. Learn new coping strategies, do what it takes to grow up and stop relying on these substances that numb you, whether it be alcohol or even food, right? What are the other parameters that it measures? Your metabolic age is an interesting one. So I'm 43 on the Tanita scales. I like to keep my metabolic age around 30. Sometimes depending on, week, if I have a week of indulgence and, whatever, that can creep up a little bit, but I correct it and I make sure my metabolic age, comes down. So that's an indication of, your muscle mass to the other parameters that are being measured as well. So it's a good way. I find it motivating, I find it when you've got your hands on the what so, it's really empowering.
Instead of just a number being a weight and how many kilos you've dropped, it is really interesting to see, my body fat percentage is this. That's what because as you say, and it's funny how people dismiss it and go, well, but it doesn't work for bodybuilders because they're all muscle and they'll be classified obese. Yeah, but you're not. So dismiss that. But it's good to see your fat percentage score, because then you can go, well, there it is in black and white. It's not just I'm heavy boned or I've got a lot of muscle or whatever.
Everyone's got pretty much the same bone mass. It's somewhere in the order of about 3 kilograms, slightly less for most people. I mean, yours is, you're a bigger guy. So, but it's not that much different, in terms of bone mass. And then if you are a bodybuilder and you've got a fair bit of muscle mass, you get on the composition scale and it'll tell you what your visceral fat score is and your body fat percentage, right? Yeah. So that's, gives you a better, they've got some in-body scans in certain gyms and so forth that you can use as well. They give you a lot of different data. I don't know how much of that is useful. I think that's kind of to make the person who owns the scanner seem smarter than perhaps what they are. No disrespect, personal trainers, but let's deal with reality here. And then
keep going.
Yeah.
I'll let you dig yourself out of this hole. Yeah.
No, I can't. I can't. I've just insulted it, thousands of people. I'm sorry, but it's true. But then you get the opposite. You get people who, oh, they're slim. You know, I keep a slim shape, and they get on the scales and their visceral fat score is really high. So this is what we call a skinny fat person.
Yeah.
Right? And their body composition doesn't look great. So they haven't got much muscle. And particularly as we age, what happens as we age is this phenomenon called sarcopenic obesity. So sarcopenic means the diminishing mass of your muscle and then the increase of your fat mass. So that's really deleterious for accelerated aging. And then after 55, it just gets hard. You know, your hormones are different. Everything's changing, and you're better off handling it before you get to that point. Because, you know, I've spoken to very well-known preventative cardiologists, and I've kind of had to say something about their body shape, and you know, it's going to be embarrassing if you don't handle that gut. You know, for the both of us. So it's like, you know, and the response was, it just got hard after 55. Tell me what to do.
Yeah.
You know, and these are experts in their field. And, you know, so it takes not just the knowledge, it takes the structure and the coaching. And, you know, I don't like to use the word mindset because I don't even know what that is, but, you know, people use that term, but that kind of coaching, you know, around who are you being? Are you being a juvenile about this? Are you being resigned? Are you being, you know, responsible? And with that responsibility, when you hold yourself accountable for your own well-being, comes a lot of power as well. So that's really the shift that happens when I work with people as their coach.
Yeah. Cool. Well, on the personal trainer note, let's get in and have a look at the time, effort, and money spent or spend difference between, say, what we're doing here and then, you know, if I was to go and engage a personal trainer or even just a gym membership and someone helps me there and whatever and train my backside off and clean up my diet, you know, don't drink so much and knock some bad foods out. What are we looking at as a comparative type thing, and also how much work you've got to put in on both sides as well for the same result?
Yeah. If we take an economic perspective on this, not just there's a lot of advantages of having a training coach as well, and that is, you know, the social interaction. There's a lot of, you know, I've spoken to personal trainers who have shared with me, like, very successful, and they say that they're successful because they have a certain level of maturity. And this is just a few of them that I've spoken to. And with that maturity comes an ability to engage people in conversations for really long periods of time. Because, you know, once you set up their program and you're coaching them day in, day out, or maybe 3 times a week, right? Over a period of time, 12 weeks or so, the conversations can get a bit boring. Right. So the personal trainer turns into more of a friend/counselor, and people come to deal with that. And that's why personal trainers that are mature and smart and can empower people in many areas of life, I think, are freaking awesome. You know, all power to them. If it's the reversal of metabolic syndrome and you want to handle the hormonal imbalance that's causing the weight gain and inability to lose weight in the first place, I'm telling you, just exercise is not the answer. And that's what we've all been educated to believe, that you got to exercise and diet. And even when I say to people that there's very little to no scientific evidence that supports exercise is important for fat reduction, people respond to that with, oh yeah, I've always known it's like 80% diet, 20% exercise. And I'm like, no, you didn't hear me. It's 100% dietary. Now, I'm not saying don't move. I'm saying, yeah, keep a routine, you know, walking and stretching and postural strengthening exercises, breathing exercises. You got to learn all that stuff. You got to learn how to use your biomechanics. take the time to rehabilitate some joint issues, etc. But if you want to reverse that fatty liver disease, if you want to handle the risk of coronary artery disease, it's dietary that's going to do that. You know, and so, for example, you know, because I knew you were going to ask this question, I ran some numbers, right? Because you got to deal with this scientifically. You got to look at the numbers. So, if you want to lose, let's just say 10 kilograms of fat, okay? So, if 1 kilogram of fat is the equivalent of 7,700 calories of stored energy, okay? So, you know that silicon fat model, right, that I use for impact. So that's 5 pounds or 2.27 kilograms of fat. That's what it represents. And that's 17,500 calories. So if we divide that by 2.27, you get per kilogram 7,700 calories worth of stored energy. Okay. Now, when I work with people, on average, men are going to lose around 2.5 kilograms every week of fat whilst preserving your lean mass with no exercise. Women is half of that. So about 1 to 1.5 kilograms for women, right? So if you think about it, for a man, if you're losing 2.5 kilograms per week, you're going to be done with 10 kilos in 4 weeks. And you've been on the protocol for 5.5 weeks. How much weight have you lost, Trevor?
About 14, 13.
Yeah, 14 to 15 kilos. So on par, right, with those estimates. So it's predictable. The protocol I use, it's predictable, it's reliable, and it's measurable. Right? So women is about half of that. Now, if you're going to exercise off 10 kilograms of fat, if you hired a personal trainer and you had 3 personal training sessions per week, and each session you're going to burn, let's be generous and say you're going to burn 500 calories in whether it be a 30-minute to a 45-minute workout, right? And that's on average, I'd say that's fair. So you're burning 1,500 calories per week. And let's just say it's not a bottom end personal trainer. It's not the top end, but let's just go on average, it's costing you $80 per session.
Yep.
Right? So $240 per week for that personal trainer. So to lose 10 kilograms of fat, assuming that you remain in an isocaloric dietary state. So you're consuming just the right amount of calories that you're currently consuming, and then you're going to burn more with exercise with your personal trainer. You have to burn 77,000 calories. Divide that by 500 equals 154 personal training sessions. Right. At 100, that's at 1,500 calories per week. And that's losing 1 kilogram every 5 weeks. Times $80 per session, that's $12,320 to lose 10 kilos. Now, let's just say that the personal trainer has some understanding about nutrition and knows that you've got to put the person on a hypocaloric diet. They've got to eat less calories than what they were consuming before. So if the diet at you create a deficit of 500 calories per day. Right. So for me, I need about 2,200 calories per day. My basal metabolic rate is 1,650 calories, so 1,650 calories. And then I burn maybe 500 calories, just my daily activities, running around, thinking, walking, all that sort of stuff. I'll burn somewhere between 450 to 500 calories. So let's just say 21 to 2,200 calories is what I need. And I'm burning calories through exercise, and I'm going to create a caloric deficit by 500 calories a day. So that's an extra 3,500 calorie deficit per week. Add to that the 1,500 calories from 3 personal training sessions. That's 5,000 calories per week That's with diet and exercise. That would still take you 15.4 weeks to lose 10 kilograms. 15.4 weeks times 3 personal training sessions at $80 each. That's $3,696 to lose 10 kilograms.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't include the gym membership. That doesn't include the gym clothes that you got to buy that to feel comfortable in that environment. That doesn't include the travel time, the parking, etc. And it certainly doesn't include any of the supplements or protein stuff that you are encouraged to buy.
Yeah, yeah.
So this is a sizable investment. And let's just say that, the personal trainer is twice as good and that you create 1,000 calorie deficit per day. That's going to cut the total cost and time in half. So that's 7.7 weeks to lose 10 kilograms. And around $1,900 personal training fees, right? Or
Counting to see that though, because whenever you talk to anyone that's ever used a personal trainer, it's always just $70 or $80 a session.
Yeah.
That's all it computes really.
Right. And you've lost in 5.5 weeks about just shy of 15. It was probably 15 or more kilos now, right? In that time frame, because you're a bit of a freak in that you've literally done for 5.5 weeks everything that I've told you to do to the letter. You haven't deviated once. Every single day you've sent me your daily diary without fail. I mean, you're the most boring person to coach ever. You've literally given me nothing to do other than, keep going.
I'll drop some scales off for it.
But if you operate with integrity, and I've known you, previously, and I've trained and developed you in a different context where you got some facility in honoring your word and acting true to your commitment versus your internal state, your thoughts and feelings and all that sort of stuff. You know that they're just thoughts and feelings, and you don't have that piece of meat in your skull run the show. You have your word run the show. And I've done that training with you before. So now you're doing this and it's like a piece of cake.
Yeah.
Not really cake, but
That's a piece of cake.
But that's why you're getting the results that you're getting as well.
Yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. And that's why, the people that have reached out and said, what are you doing? What should I do? And they've contacted you and they're on board and whatever. And they say, so what have I got to do? What's the lie? Just do what Dean says. That's all I'm doing. It's not any more complicated than that. Just do what he says.
Yeah, it gets complicated because people try and think for themselves. I just don't recommend people do that. Don't stop trying to think. You really, if you knew the answers, if you knew how to do it, you would have done it, right? You wouldn't be so stupid to deliberately put yourself in a situation of ill health.
There's about 10 of my mates right now that are going, well, there's why he's so good at it, because he doesn't think. I could have told you that before you started.
So it's kind of like it's paradoxical, because on one hand, yes, you got to do what I say. But on the other hand, you've got to develop an accountability, a sense of self-accountability, because, it's not so easy as just saying, Dean, just tell me what to do and I'll do it.
Yeah.
I promise you, even if I tell you, you won't do it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's many diets out there, and if people are just looking for a diet, I'm not the person to help them, because that's not what this is. This is a complete transformational process where not only your biochemistry and your physiology transforms, alters, but so do you. I mean, you have to, because when we get your body to that ideal point, then I'm committed that who's left there managing that body is a new you, someone with the maturity and the responsibility and the power and the wherewithal to manage that outcome for the rest of your life. So this is the last diet you ever go on.
Yeah.
Right? There's no, otherwise, losing weight, as I've always said, it's easy. You just do a shit, take your shoes off, jump on the scales, you'll weigh less, right? But how do you lose the weight and keep it off for the rest of your life? That's what people ought to really be interested in.
Yeah.
And often what happens is people say, I just need to lose 10 kilos. And I look at them and it's like, you got to lose like 25 kilos, like, right? But people say 10 kilos because in their mind, from the past, that's what they know to be possible for them, because that's what they've been able to accomplish with not much effort. Because you can lose that in 2 or 3 months, with a bit of effort, even if you're not so smart about it. You get dedicated, you stop eating your meat pies and drinking your chocolate milk, and drinking beer and all that sort of stuff, you'll lose a weight. But how sustainable is that? And has your biochemistry altered such that it puts you in a state of good health, not just a skinnier person?
Yeah.
Because doctors are putting skinny people on high blood pressure medication, anti-diabetic medication, cardiovascular disease medication all the time. It's not just being skinny.
No.
Skinny does not mean healthy.
No, exactly right. Yeah, one of my dad's mates is a prime example of that. He was always looked fit and healthy, never overweight, was always out doing something, and then bang, quadruple bypass. What?
Yeah.
So yeah, all of that makes total sense. And then what are we comparing to on that side of things? Well, then what sort of effort are we putting into the personal trainer side? How much energy have we got to expend? It's okay to say, well, we're going to burn 500 calories a session. But what does that look like to burn 500 calories a session?
Yeah. Well, it depends on the person, their pre-existing fitness levels and willingness to push themselves and the quality of the personal trainer. I mean, certainly you don't want someone who's just ideally, personal trainers would recognize someone whose biochemistry is out of whack.
Yeah.
Right. They've got metabolic syndrome. How do you know? They look it, right? And they're on some kind of medication from their doctor, or their doctor's told them that they need to lose weight. You would hand them over to someone like me to get their biochemistry right in like 6 to 10 weeks. And then they can go back and they can exercise now. They're not so inflamed. They can recover from the workouts better. And their time, the retention with the personal trainer is likely to be longer as well.
Yeah.
People quit when it hurts and they can't recover properly and they're exhausted and they can't think and they don't want someone just yelling at them all the time. Yeah. And it's more pleasant, I think, both for the personal trainer and the client when they've got the biochemistry to support that kind of stress. And it is a stress and the body's got to recover from that stress. So that's what happens. I think certainly no exercise for the first 4 to 6 weeks whilst your body's switching to a new energy source. And it takes a good 3 to 4 weeks for your body to become ketone adaptive. That's where all the enzymatic restructuring happens. So your cells have to increase the amount of enzymes that allow them to better utilize the ketones as a fuel source, because your body's not used to running on ketones 24/7. Right. If you're obese, then chances are you're almost 100% carbohydrate burner, and you just burn carbs. And then when you try and exercise, your body doesn't, because you got too much insulin going on. So the insulin prevents you from tapping into your fat reserves. And so your brain needs fuel, and it's just going to make you want to crave carbs.
Yeah, right.
So you'll just keep restocking your carbohydrate stores. Yeah. So it's really hard for people, particularly if you have an injury and if you've got metabolic syndrome. Chances are, if you're over 45, you've got some degree of osteoarthritis and achy joints, and whether it be in your back or in your hip or knees. So you don't really want to exercise because it freaking hurts. So handle the fat. That's the house burning down. There's nothing to do when the house is burning down other than act appropriately to the house is burning down. Yeah. Stop trying to rearrange the furniture and considering a garage sale, or no, the house is burning down. You got to handle that. You got to put the fire out. And in your case, if you're obese, the fire is the hypersecretion of insulin from your pancreas. And that can only be handled nutritionally.
Yeah.
So, and if you've got fatty liver disease or risk of heart disease or whatever, autoimmune conditions or whatever, you got to handle that biochemically.
Yeah.
And then exercise becomes critical, obviously, to maintain those results that we accomplish. But certainly it's not required for the reduction in fat. Once you get to your ideal weight, then yeah, absolutely. I need personal trainers that I can refer people to.
Yeah.
So if you are a good quality personal trainer and you want to learn more and have these types of clients, then yeah, contact me.
Yeah.
Reach out to Trevor or get my details, whatever. Because I need them to refer people to.
Yeah. Cool. Well, we'll have people like that on once we get this podcast up and running and have those
that'd be cool.
and all that sort of stuff in. It should be fun.
Yeah, I've got a number of movement experts lined up: physiotherapists, chiropractors, strength and conditioning coaches. David Boyle, ex-professional rugby player, is a good mate of mine. He wants to be part of it. I've got a meeting with Australia's greatest Olympian champion on Friday. It doesn't take much for people to work out who that is. And then on Wednesday this week, I'm meeting with one of Australia's top clinical professors who wants to put layers of research on top of what I do as well. And that's going to be fun. He rang me up today, actually. It was like, we want to write your work up. Yeah. So, that's going to be exciting.
Yeah, it's going to be real cool. All right.
Yeah. So
thanks for being on the call today.
People's poo. Pleasure.
Thanks.
And keep going. Keep doing what you're doing. 5.5 weeks in, a little bit of coaching for you. It's easy to get complacent and drop the ball. So you want to keep doing a regular accounting of your performance against the actual design of the protocol. And just keep checking in that one pager that I've given you, and just keep looking for yourself. Where am I deviating? Where am I going off? Where is it not as tight as it could be? And just correct that immediately. And that'll keep you on that linear decline so you don't plateau. And we want you to lose the weight that you want to lose as fast as possible, so we can get you out of that restricted phase and into the stabilizing phase faster.
Sweet. All right.
Yeah.
Thanks. Let's talk again next week. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, buddy.